for political reasons and that sort of thing. But there has been a few studies on women's empowerment in the Middle East. There was two done on empowerment with Afghani women, and then there was another one done on Iranian women's interpretation of feminism and power. So there have been a few studies done. And just to kind of summarize the literature and how it affected my research, empowerment as a process can be defined as an individual's attempt to exert environmental control. So I selected participants that had demonstrated this through attempting to break a major rule in society. Now, there's all kinds of little ways to break rules in society, but these are people that had made a major decision, that had actually done something that was really against the grain, compared to their generation, compared to the cities or towns they were living in. So I selected women that had, most people in that culture would look at them and say, wow, that was a pretty big deal that you did that. So like I said, that goes back to kind of the definition of empowerment. They were exerting some type of control. And people can empower themselves in a variety of ways. And so the research questions asked about these different dimensions, like the political, the economic, the social. So the purpose of the study was to explore the journey of women's empowerment for women in Iran and to integrate their voices into short stories in order to make the findings more accessible. So it started out different, but then I kind of evolved into I wanted to make this more accessible to a wider range of people, because I just think it's a pretty important topic. So I converted I'm in the process of converting everything to short stories. And I use qualitative because it provides a more complete and detailed description. Participants are co-researchers, and it allows Iranian women to describe their experiences in their own words. And also this is a constructivist study. And just to go a little bit about my methods, the site was Tehran, Iran, the capital. I did get permissions from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's IRB. I did recruitment over telephone. I had 26 participants. And I did intensity sampling. So I selected cases that were fairly intense in the phenomenon. And then as far as reciprocity with the community, I gave gifts. Also sharing your story can be healing, which several participants told me that. I plan on sharing the findings with the participants, and I'm just continuing to reflect on ways to sort of give back to the community, because I do feel like that was somewhat lacking. And I think I maybe need to be more familiar with the culture, but I definitely want to keep thinking of ways to give back. I did semi-structured interviews, and I used probes. I gave a lot of time for the interviews. The interviews went from, there was a couple that were short, like 20 minutes, but then most of them were at least an hour, and some of them were like an hour, 20 minutes, an hour, 30 minutes. So there's a different sense of time in Iran too, so I just kind of try to give people enough time to answer the questions. And the participants ranged in age from 28 to 84 years, which was good that I had such a wide range. They had a variety of educational levels, middle school to graduate level, variety of areas of study, chemistry, economics, wide professional diversity, seamstress, teaching, student, stay-at-home mom, architect. And almost all of them resided in Tehran, the capital, or Kaj, which is a nearby city, except for one person. And there was also a variety of rules that they'd broken. So moving out of a small town on their own, which is a really big deal, getting a divorce and becoming successful, starting businesses that employed mostly women, and obtaining success in male-dominated fields. So there was just a wide variety of rules. And the research questions, the main question was, what was the process of breaking the societal rule? And as you can see, kind of the sub-questions kind of relate to that process. So, what led them down this path? What were the results of that? So, it was basically just kind of trying to capture this process. As far as the data analysis, my level of Farsi is not good enough to really translate these verbatim. So what I've been doing is kind of summarizing them as I go. So I'll summarize them as I'm listening to them, and I really focused at this point, I've really focused on two stories, and I used other stories to kind of add some information, kind of supplement some of the details. So it's a kind of loose sort of analysis, and the interpretation was basically I made a one-page summary of all of them, and I selected 2 or 3 of the most striking ones and loosely translated those into short stories. And then, and this is all in process still, I'm going to continue open coding on the one-page summaries and add codes to further provide further detail, and then just group codes together to develop common themes, and then include some of those common themes in the stories. I'm planning on using MaxQDA software. I do not have multiple coders at this time, and I plan on using peer audit and member checking as far as validity. And then reflexivity, I did a lot of bracketing. I really had to look into this, saying, you know, I am an Iranian American woman, but the reality is I've been in the U.S. Most of my life. So I am in a lot of ways an outsider to that community. So just kind of trying to keep that in mind, and that everything that I was doing was from my own perception as a fairly westernized person. So I just kind of tried to keep that in mind. And I kept a journal of all the research challenges and just all the identity challenges that I faced there. And just to kind of summarize the findings, the women described a multitude of ways that they started the women's empowerment process. Some talked about the roles of their fathers and how they stressed the value of education and self-discipline. Others discussed the influential role of their mothers, who encouraged and fostered their independence. They considered themselves strong, capable, hardworking, and dedicated. Their strategies to combat societal opposition included social networks, books, therapists, homeopathic doctors, education, and drawing from their inner strength. Many described economic and political structures as being barriers to achieving their empowerment. Social groups, especially families, were sometimes a seemingly insurmountable barrier and sometimes an invaluable source of support. Although some women acknowledged the sorrow of their past, all of them said they had no regrets and felt happy and at peace with their decisions. Some of these women really went through a lot. They were shunned by society, by their families, and yet it was really interesting to me that they didn't have regrets, even though they'd been through all that pain, and some of them were still kind of feeling the effects of the traumas that they went through, but they still didn't feel like they had any regrets, which I thought was pretty amazing. So now I'm just going to read the two that I've done so far, the 2 short stories. So the first one's called I Will Never Be a Prisoner Again, the story of Maktub. College was a huge turning point for me. It was there that I found smart, liberal people. I found my self-confidence in college. But then I returned to my hometown, and the nightmares resurfaced. In my small town, I wasn't sure what was wrong. I tried everything to feel better, but nothing seemed to work. I will never forget what the doctor said. There is no pill for you. You have to leave this environment. That's when I moved here to Tehran, and I can honestly say that life is getting better every day. This changed me profoundly. There is rest here. There is peace. The air is lovely. I had to leave my hometown behind. I used to walk in the shadows with my head down and my shoulders slumped. I was ruled by what society wanted of me. Now I'm reaching the point where no one can tell me not to do something. People saw me as a whore for getting a divorce, for changing a situation that I was miserable in. Everyone remained the same in my hometown. I wanted to take vacations, have fun. I like new adventures. I will never allow myself to be a prisoner to anyone or anything. I never believed I was broken beyond repair, even though at times it seemed that's what society wanted me to believe. I rescued myself. The worst part was the oppression in the name of Islam. I do not allow people to treat me the way Islam wants me to be treated. I still have nightmares about my hometown, even now as my life gets more beautiful each day. The memories haunt me, and like a turtle with a shell, I carry them around as if they belong in my home. I don't know why I can't throw them away. I really want to. I know I need to, but for some reason I don't. I will never forget that I could not even afford dry milk for my baby. I loathe being forced to move in with my mom when we had no money. I hate that my son had to work at such a young age. I can still taste the tears of having no money to buy shoes, so I had to wear sandals in the cold. The sun was scorching hot there in the 120s. We had no fan. In Tehran, I see everything in a new light. I can see all the beauty in the world. At that time, I only saw the hurtful things in the world. Here people show me love, affection, and acceptance. So many things have helped me on my journey. Surrounding myself with positive people, watching satellite television, especially the famous psychologists. They taught me my negative environment did not have to give me negative energy. Reading my books opened my eyes too. I had to distance myself from that place. Even now I consider endless possibilities. I want to go to a foreign country and pursue my education, perhaps. I always see new possibilities. Women need to go to college and empower themselves economically. Their husbands and fathers should not be their sole source of income. In Iran, women can easily become prisoners of their husbands. I have no regrets, and I am proud of my journey. My kids have found new friends, their attitudes have changed, and we no longer struggle to survive. Reactions of others have been mixed. Some people were happy with the changes within me, others were upset, and the latter group still tell me that I will not amount to anything. But I know that I am successful. So that was the first one. And then the second one is Elham the Brave, I am the master of my destiny. I did not just break rules. I broke them with purpose, and I did it well. What was the barrier? Everything, starting with the political, economic, social, you name it. But my education was so important to me. And where I was from, the co-ed schools, the ones where boys and girls were mixed, were such a struggle, unequal by far. But as I said, my education was far more important. There were times when my family could not afford to send me to school, and that made me so sad. So I learned to tolerate a lot to get what I want at a very young age. God forbid you go against the grain here. I live the way I want, never imposing my will on anyone else. I am the owner of my life. You're not supposed to say no in this culture. No matter when people come or when they call, you welcome them with open arms. I do not answer any calls after a certain time. I like to spend time alone. Everything and everyone is a barrier, starting with mother, father, job, political system. I speak out against the system every chance I get. I write and write, but know that I will never get permission to publish. I don't judge, and I give others the same freedom. There were times when my surroundings had been horrid. When I wasn't satisfied with them, I began to look within. This started me on a great journey. Knowing my power came from within touched everything that I did. And because I know how important it was, I've fought all my life for girls to have the ability to become educated. I've written letters, fought with those in power. There were so many barriers within that path, and I always felt upset. So I opened up my own company instead, and I employed 70 to 80 people. I can connect with people of all different ages and educational levels. I've always been good at that, and it has helped me so much in this world. I was given an award for my work out of a contest of many people, mostly men. The day I was supposed to receive it, they claimed there were charges against me. Once the charges were pursued, they found out that they had no merit. These were the kinds of things that happened. We had to work harder than the men for much less reward. But still I persevered. I love the women where I'm from. Navy mantos, headscarves the color of the earth. Cultured, clever, good mothers, good people, hardworking, calm, and humble. Their kids are good too. Their blood courses through my veins. I am sad for these women. I know how much they have to bear. We don't care about wearing the chador. It does not mean anything to us. They told us to remove it at one time, then they told us to wear it. We don't want it, but we just go about our day. At a young age, I was promised to someone. I cried so much. I felt so forced into that life, and I hated it. The environment was so small, but I told myself that it is okay. Nothing will break me. I read books, poetry, Rumi, Hafiz, Sadi. I never forget their words. I sing Muslim prayers when I get in trouble, and then I don't feel as bad. I always knew I had to fight, and I did it in the fullest way possible. There was no other way. I am a strong woman, mother, and wife. There were times our family was so poor I could not even afford shoes for myself. But despite everything, I sewed my kids the best clothes. I did so much for the kids on my own without much help from my husband. I sent my children to school. They went to the best schools. They're amazing, successful in many different ways. I always strive to employ women. I started so many businesses and kept them close to me. I had journals. My husband got sick, and during the days I stayed home, I would take care of him. I always said I would fight. One day I broke my hip. Slept in the hospital for 7 days, and the doctor told me I had to rest for 3 months. I got up and said I have to fight this hardship. I continued to sew in my home. I will always fight. So those were the 2 short stories so far. And then implications of the study, just to kind of promote cross-cultural understanding. As I'm sure all of you know, there's a very limited information about the Middle East, and you just don't hear a lot of this sorts of things. But really, I really would like to promote cross-cultural understanding and just provide useful information to policymakers regarding empowerment-based interventions, and hopefully it'll help clinicians in Iran, psychotherapists, to understand clients better. Some of the limitations are that empowerment is a very context-specific phenomenon, and it's dynamic also. Like I said before, the research design, questions, implementation, all of these reflect Western notions of empowerment and Western notions of research. And the very idea of empowerment as something to be measured has been considered problematic by some researchers. Future directions for this project, I want to do more collaboration with the community to, from the beginning, to help me with the project, help design the project. And I just want to continue to address women's empowerment in countries that women are marginalized.
We'll open it up for questions. If anybody has any.